Greetings. Welcome to this tutorial outlining how to do the Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool version 2 for single adults. My name is Ian DeYoung. I'm the President and CEO of WordCode Consulting, and along with our fantastic partners at Community Solutions, it is my pleasure to run you through this short video on how to do SPDAT version 2. We start by capturing administrative information. That would be the name of the assessor or interviewer and the agency or organization with which they work or are affiliated with. You also want to be capturing the date and time of the survey and the location where the survey is being completed. To ensure consistent results with the SPDAT, it is critical that your community have a common opening script. This means that the SPDAT is introduced the exact same way regardless of with whom the SPDAT is being completed. In this opening script, you want to include such details as the name of the assessor and their affiliation, the purpose of why your community is using the SPDAT. So for example, if you're using it for coordinated entry into services or prioritization, you should make that transparent. You want people to know that it usually takes 7 minutes or less to complete, that you are only seeking yes, no, or one-word answers. The participant must know that they are allowed to skip or refuse any question that they do not want to answer. You must indicate where the information will be stored. Also, that if the person does not understand a question, or that if you, as the surveyor, think that the question is not being understood, that you can and will provide clarification. Note, this may require you to get off script, but that is entirely appropriate if it is the difference between someone understanding a specific question and them not understanding the question. Finally, you want to provide an indication that honesty is being sought. Participants should know that they don't need to embellish a response nor keep information away from you in order to get access to a program, that you want them to answer as honestly and as openly as they feel comfortable doing. If you are completing the SPDAT within your HMIS or other similar data system, it is quite likely you already have this information. The person's name and last name, as well as their nickname or any street aliases, the language they feel best able to express themselves, and their date of birth and age, as well as their social. If you don't already have this information and you're doing it on paper, you may be wondering why you have to ask for their age if you're getting their date of birth. The reason is they are likely to tell you their age faster and more accurately than you can do the math on their date of birth. This is important because the first possible score is a point of 1 for anybody who is 60 years of age or older. We then move into the first domain, history of housing and homelessness. There are 3 questions in this domain. Question 1, where do you sleep most frequently? You are then going to read through the answers on the right-hand side. Shelters, transitional housing, safe haven, outdoors, other, and if they indicate other, you want to specify on the line, or whether or not they've refused. If the person responds with anything other than shelter, transitional housing, or safe haven, provide a score of 1. If there's any confusion on what is meant by most frequently, you may want to ask them where they've slept most frequently over the past week or even the past month. Question 2 and 3 go together. Question 2. How long has it been since you've lived in permanent, stable housing? This refers to housing that would provide rights of tenure. Permanent housing would not include such places as transitional housing or sober living facilities. You then want to ask, in the past 3 years, how many times have you been homeless? To increase the accuracy of recall, put the last 3 years in context. If I were conducting the survey, I would ask the question like this. In the past 3 years, okay, May 2015 until May 2014, May 2014 to May 2013, May 2013 to May 2012. Since May 2012, how many times have you been homeless? Don't forget to count the most recent or current experience of homelessness. If they've experienced 1 or more consecutive years of homelessness, or 4 or more episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years, then provide a score of 1. We then move into the domain of risks. This has a number of questions that relate to risk factors in the person's life that may impact their current vulnerability or their future housing stability. Starting with question 4, in the past 6 months. So let's increase accuracy of recall. Today is May 1st. So I would do this question by saying, all right, in the past 3 months, so from May 1st to April 1st, April 1st to March 1st, March 1st to February 1st, February 1st to January 1st, January 1st to December 1st, December 1st to November 1st. Since November 1st, how many times have you received health care at an emergency department or emergency room? Taken an ambulance to the hospital? Been hospitalized as an inpatient? Used a crisis service, including a sexual assault crisis, mental health crisis, family or intimate partner violence, distress centers, and suicide prevention hotlines. Talked to police because you witnessed a crime or the victim of a crime, or the alleged perpetrator of a crime, or because the police told you that you must move along. Stayed 1 or more nights in a holding cell, jail, or prison, whether that was a short-term stay like the drunk tank, a longer-term stay for a more serious offense, or anything in between. You count up the numbers from A through F, and if there's been 4 or more interactions with emergency services, score 1. Questions 5 and 6 go together. Question 5. Have you been attacked or beaten up since you've become homeless? Note that this only refers to the homeless period of time in their life. Question 6. Have you threatened to or tried to harm yourself or anyone else in the last year? So threats may be verbal or written threats. Trying to harm yourself would include any attempts at harm, whether or not they were successful. Must also note that if a person has been involved in a physical altercation, even if they weren't the instigator of the altercation, if they did anything other than run away, chances are they've put the other person at risk. If it's yes to 5 or 6, score 1. Question 7. Do you have any legal stuff going on right now that may result in you being locked up, having to pay fines, or that make it more difficult to rent a place to live? Legal stuff is a pretty inclusive phrase, intentionally so. But as such, there are times when sometimes people miss things. Legal stuff refers to any legal issue that would result in a payment of fine or incarceration, or that is going to make it difficult to find a place to live. That may include such things as being on a sex offender registry. It may include such things as moving violations and tickets from driving offenses. It may include court-ordered payments of fines. Anything that requires an involvement of a payment of fine or that would put someone at risk of incarceration counts as legal stuff. And if they say yes, score 1. Question 8 and 9 go together. 8. Does anybody force or trick you to do things that you do not want to do? Now, force or trick means that it wasn't of their own decision-making or not something that they've done and then later regretted, that they were coerced or duped or otherwise led to engage in behavior that they really didn't want to do. And question 9, do you ever do things that may be considered to be risky, like exchange sex for money, run drugs for someone, have unprotected sex with someone you don't know, share a needle, or anything like that? Did you note the cadence at the end of my voice when I asked that question, or anything like that? It's deliberate. That's a device that you are actually indicating to the person that you read through a list and you don't want specifics. If they do happen to provide an overshare, this would be a good opportunity to make sure that they understand you only need a yes or no answer. Next up is the domain on socialization and daily functioning. Question 10 and 11 go together. 10. Is there any person, past landlord, business, bookie, dealer, or government group like the IRS that thinks you owe them money. Note that it's whether or not they think they're owed money, not whether or not they agree with them. Question 11, do you get any money from the government, a pension, an inheritance, working under the table, a regular job, or anything like that? If they say yes to 10 or no to 11, then score 1 for money management. Question 12, do you have planned activities, other than just surviving, that make you feel happy and fulfilled? If they say no, score 1. Question 13, are you currently able to take care of basic needs like bathing, changing clothes, using a restroom, getting food and clean water, and other things like that? That is their own personal assessment of essentially their ability to exercise self-care and perform daily living skills. Question 14, is your current homelessness in any way caused by a relationship that broke down, an unhealthy or abusive relationship, or because family or friends caused you to become evicted? This is essentially asking them to draw a cause and effect of whether or not they see the current experience of homelessness as a result of those type of relationships or family encounters. If they say yes, score 1. The final domain is that of wellness. The first series of questions, 15 through 20, are all related to physical health. 15. Have you ever had to leave an apartment, shelter program, or other place you were staying because of your physical health? What this question is essentially getting at is whether or not their health has actually been compromised or so bad, or whether or not they've had a health condition that has resulted in them being unable to stay housed. It's their assessment of the situation. 16. Do you have any chronic health issues with your liver, kidneys, stomach, lungs, or heart? By chronic health issues, we are talking about very specific types of illnesses, and we are talking about specific parts of the body with this. Question 17. If there was space available in a program that specifically assists people that live with HIV or AIDS, would that be of interest to you? In this question, we are not asking the person if they have HIV or AIDS. We're asking them if they would be interested in a program that serves people with HIV or AIDS. 18. Do you have any physical disabilities that would limit the type of housing you could access, or would make it hard to live independently because you'd need help? There's no sub-assessment on those physical disabilities. It is their own personal assessment of those disabilities. 19. When you are sick or not feeling well, do you avoid getting help? And then if the respondent is biologically female, you want to ask the question, are you currently pregnant? If they say yes to any of the questions from 15 through 20, score 1 for physical health. Question 21 and 22 are the questions related to substance use. 21. Has your drinking or drug use led you to being kicked out of an apartment or program where you were staying in the past? 22. Will drinking or drug use make it difficult for you to stay housed or afford your housing? A quick note on 21. When we're saying in the past, we are actually talking about the more recent past. One might say the last 3 to 5 years. So for example, if they say I got kicked out of a place 25 years ago because of my drinking, but I've been sober for 18 years, that's not exactly the sort of time frame that we're looking at. If they say yes to 21 or 22, score 1. Question 23 and 24 are the questions we have related to mental health and cognitive functioning issues. 23. Have you ever had trouble maintaining your housing, or been kicked out of an apartment, shelter program, or other place you were staying because of a mental health issue or concern, a past head injury, a learning disability, developmental disability, or other impairment? Question 24. Do you have any mental health or brain issues that would make it hard for you to live independently because you'd need help? If they say yes to A, B, or C of 23 or to 24, score 1. Now, if you're using your HMIS or similar database, the next part happens behind the scenes. If you're doing it on paper, you'll have to check to see if they scored 1 in the physical health issues section, 1 in the substance use section, and 1 in the mental health section. Because if they scored 1 in all 3 of those, they're going to get an extra point here for trimorbidity. The last 3 questions. Are there any medications that a doctor said you should be taking that, for whatever reason, you are not taking? That could be because they can't afford it, or they've lost it, or it's been taken away from them. Doesn't matter the reason. Question 26. Are there any medications like painkillers that you don't take the way the doctor prescribed or where you sell the medication? If they say yes to either 25 or 26, score 1. And then question 27 is the question that is not written by us nor informed by people experiencing homelessness directly. It is written by experts in abuse and trauma and structured in this way to decrease the likelihood of re-traumatizing someone in the asking. Yes or no? Has your current period of homelessness been caused by an experience of emotional, physical, psychological, sexual, or other type of abuse, or by any other trauma you have experienced? If they say yes to that question, score 1 for abuse and trauma. Now on to the scoring summary. There's a 17 possible point total for the new VI SPDAT. It is our recommendation that if they score 8 or more, that they be further assessed and considered for permanent supportive housing or an assertive community treatment or intensive case management housing first program. If they score between 4 and 7, we recommend that be assessed and considered for rapid rehousing. And if they score between 0 and 3, we are recommending that no housing support intervention be considered. Please keep in mind, the VI SPDAT does not make decisions, it informs decisions. It provides data for you and your community to use in consideration of things like prioritization. As such, while it provides data, you're going to have to put the data in the context of how your community goes about doing assessments and how your community is going about doing prioritization. At the conclusion of that, there are some follow-up questions that many communities have found to be helpful. Like, on a regular day, where is it easiest to find you and what time of day is it easiest to do so? Is there a phone number and or email where someone can safely get in touch with you or leave a message? Okay, now I'd like to take your picture so that it's easier to find you and confirm your identity in the future. May I do so? You can add any other non-scored question that you want to the VI SPDAT. That would be any question that's of interest to you or your community or would help with filtering or prioritization. And so long as you do not assign a point to it, ask away. That being said, only ask the questions that are going to be relevant for your community to make decisions and how to support people. Don't just ask questions for the sake of asking them. The sort of questions that are most commonly considered are things like military service and the nature of discharge, whether or not they've aged out of care when there's youth-specific programs, mobility issues when you need to know more about the type of housing that can be brought to bear or offered to people, legal status in the country. Some programs need to know income and source of it for specific types of housing, whether or not there's any current legal restrictions on where they're allowed to live or who they're allowed to live near, whether or not they're children that are not currently with the adult that are likely to rejoin the adult after they're housed. And many communities find it necessary and important to ask questions about safety. And this most often comes before the VI SPDAT is even started as a pre-screen tool so that if someone would actually be better served through a domestic or intimate partner violence resource, that they do so. Some closing thoughts. You may be wondering, how do you convert the scores or compare the scores from version 1 to version 2? We put a resource up on orgco.com, but also know it looks something like this. In version 1, there were 4 questions in the early stages of the wellness. 22, 23, 24, and 25. They were each worth 1 point. If you reduce those 4 possible points to 1 point in version 1 and compare it to version 2, both versions are now out of 17 and are directly comparable. You may be wondering, well, now that this is out, when do we switch to version 2? That's a decision for your community to make. You don't even have to switch to version 2. And if you want to, you don't have to switch right away. Probably best for you and your community to figure out the best timeline by which you want to make the transition if you are going to make the transition. And if you have been using your HMIS to help with your data capture and your prioritization lists, you may also want to wait for it to be updated in HMIS before you make the switch. Please note that while we provide all the information and materials to the HMIS vendors that have legal permission from OrgCode and Community Solutions to put the VI SPDAT into their system, we do not control the timeline with which they do programming, nor if they will ever make this available to their customers. But do note that if they have our legal permission, they are going to be getting the VI SPDAT version 2 resource. After all this, you may still have questions, and we want them, because if we get your questions, we can start to see which ones are most frequently asked and prepare materials that will be helpful to more and more communities. If after watching this video and consulting the resources on the orgcode.com website you have questions, email us. vispdat@cmtysolutions.org. That's vispdat@cmtysolutions.org. That email address goes to both OrgCode and Community Solutions staff, which will allow us to keep track of queries and prepare frequently asked questions. Thank you for watching this short video. We do hope that you, people experiencing homelessness in your community, service planners, and the like, find value in the new version of the Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool, and we look forward to hearing how this rolls out in your community. Bye for now.